To record. Thank you so much for everybody for attending tonight. My name is Dr. Colleen Ehrlich. I am the immediate past president of the Colorado Association for Gifted and Talented, and this is Conversations with CAGT, and we are so excited to have one of our own, Shalelia Dillard, here tonight to share her knowledge and expertise with us. And so I'm just going to do a quick introduction and then hand it on over to her. Shalelia Dillard is a Denver native and has been in the education field for over 16 years. She received her BA in psychology with a minor in Spanish from Hampton University. Shalelia is the founder and executive director of Scholars Cultivating Dignity Enrichment Program, which recruits and supports gifted students of color in gifted education and advanced coursework. She is a national, regional, and local conference speaker in the field of gifted and talented and equity, and is currently completing her master's in ed psychology at the University of Northern Colorado with a gifted and talented endorsement. She is also the CEO and founder of CDEP, Equity Consulting LLC, an agency that specializes in equity services in gifted and talented program development. And she is here tonight to talk about how integrating culturally holistic programming increases success for gifted BIPOC secondary students. So with that, Shalelia, thank you so much for being here tonight, and I hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Super excited to be here. And I'm going to make it bigger so you all can see. All right. So, like Dr. Colleen just said, I am Shalelia Dillard, and I'm really excited to talk about this today because everything that I talk about on a daily basis. And also, it is an experience that is near and dear to me. So really excited. As she said, I'm from Denver originally. I grew up on what we call the East Side, born and raised, and I am a wife and mother of two great boys. One is twice exceptional, and the other one is amazing. And our my twice exceptional boy is 9. He's in the 4th grade, and my amazing son is a senior in high school, and I'm going through the craziness of preparing for that. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. I was identified as gifted in the 1st grade, so I am coming to you from a person who experienced the gifted and talented program here in Denver Public Schools, and I matriculated through honors, HGT, AP programming, and concurrent enrollment. So pretty much all of the programs that are available to a gifted student. I did very well, although I was homeless from 9 to 18. And really, I clinged to education in order to make sure that I made it out of my circumstances. And because of that, I received a full scholarship from the Daniels Fund to Hampton University, which is an HBCU, an historically Black college in Virginia. And as she said, I studied psychology because I am obsessed about how people learn in our brains and how we process our environments. Um, After that, I actually was in college when I found out about the Upward Bound program and worked for them a little bit in the summer and was inspired to be a teacher. So almost done with my degree and was like, I think I want to change. So I'm going to go through an alternative certification program, and was a teacher for 7 years in Austin, Texas, and was a teacher for 4 years in Denver, here in Denver. I also am very committed to making sure that Black and Brown students are at the table within the conversation in some community organizations that I am a part of. So I am the community chair for the Colorado Association for Gifted and Talented. And I am also the current secretary. I'm leaving the secretary role as a gifted education state with the gifted education state advisory committee. And because business wasn't my major and I created a nonprofit and an LLC, I did a lot of accelerating programs that helped me prepare for those roles. And I am really excited about the work that I'm doing here in the community and in Austin, Texas. Our program has expanded to Austin, Texas about 3 years ago. And all of the speaking that I do nationally and here in the state. So, as she said, I am the founder and executive director for SCD Enrichment Program. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience and success in making sure that our students are able to love their full selves, and including their culture and gifted and talented. And I also am the CEO of CDEP Equity Consulting. What I noticed as I was going into schools is that sometimes schools didn't have a gifted program, or if they did, it wasn't very culturally inclusive for BIPOC students. And so I created the LLC as a result of that. And I go in and do equity support, gifted program development, and also professional development through a adult learning perspective. So if you've ever sat in a PD and you're bored, I try not to do that because I was that teacher bored in the professional development session. So yes.
So gifted and talented kids of the 90s.
Oh, before I play that, I wanted to kind of go into what I experienced as a GT kid and traditional gifted and talented programming. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I do want to note that traditional GT programs are inherently not aligned with the core values of BIPOC cultures. And this is like one example of some of the things that I have experienced personally as a GT student and as a teacher observed my GT students uh, go through in those programs. And then also now that I am outside of schools, but still inside of schools, experiencing or able to see what the students are experiencing as I am supporting schools through our nonprofit or the equity consulting firm. So I found this the other day and I thought it was pretty funny because this guy talks about the millennial gifted and talented experience. So I wanted to just play this really quickly and then I'll go into the points that are on the side.
So gifted and talented kids of the 90s. How many of us are now burnt out millennials that are completely addicted to stress because we are made to believe that we would be rewarded for our overachieving and people pleasing? Join Gifted and Talented, they said. You're smart and we have special projects for you. And you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. I guess I feel pretty special, but work more because I'm smart? Okay, I guess so. And that's where it all started. The beginning of the need to prove our worth by always doing more and working harder and being the best of the stressed and creating a non-stop cycle of burnout for ourselves.
So really what he was explaining was a individualistic perspective that traditional gifted and talented and advanced coursework programs are uplifting in in this for gifted and talented students. And that is very harmful, especially for BIPOC cultural communities, because it is the exact opposite of how we navigate our world. We are very communal, very community based, and the ways in which the assignments, the individualistic competitiveness, and the performance of students are very harmful. So, for example, when I was in gifted and talented and advanced coursework, it was a very competitive, like, oh, what you get on this test, or oh, you just got a B plus. Well, I got an A. And it could be very alarming and alienating to BIPOC students. Not that we can't get the A plus because we can, absolutely. But it's more like, hey, let's collaborate and let's work as a team, or let's celebrate each other. That is not really happening for not just my personal experiences navigating those programs, but also the students in which I'm supporting today. They have these same outlooks on these programs. And I have named them very Eurocentric core values that are incorporated in traditional gifted and talented programs, which are not conducive for Black and Brown students. And as well as that, the content of the curriculum also lacks cultural relevance for the students. And so let's say they can get over the competitiveness, and maybe that's just a part of who they are as well. Um, them not seeing themselves in the curriculum and the styles of learning can and m- make it to where they don't feel like they belong in these courses. I actually had a meeting today, and a GT coordinator said that she has a student that was like, I, a Black boy, a GT student, and was like, I don't want to be seen as the nerd. I don't want to feel like I am othered. And so I'd rather not be in these programs. And we have seen that a lot in our program. And I've seen it personally as a younger sister whose brother actually dropped out of AP programming for the same reasons. And it is alarming because programs need to include our students' cultural characteristics as well. What is happening is that agency needs to be involved in identity development from a cultural perspective. So, explicitly facilitating the gifted and academic identity development from a cultural lens is like my sweet spot. That's what we do in our programming, and what I do on the equity side is a consulting side as well. And that needs for us to reframe the typical characteristics of giftedness in order to incorporate cultural superpowers. So I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. So in SCD enrichment program, these are the three pillars of what we do on a nonprofit side. We have a in-school program that serves students during the school day, and it typically takes the place of like an advisory period or a elective sometimes. And the name which we created for it is Critical Perspectives and Exploration of Cultural and Academic and Gifted Identities Through Ethnic History. And really, essentially, what we're doing is we are teaching them those advanced development skills that are needed in order to be successful in an environment where they see themselves and their peers. And we do that by teaching them high level, college level concepts through all the core content. So, for example, we have a lesson where we are doing the students are learning about trust bridges, so engineering, but I have the students creating those trust bridges through origami. And so it's incorporating in Japanese culture and the influence in why origami is a art form that is so popular in that culture, and how it relates to math and science and all the great things that I love as a former math and science teacher. And so the students are learning a multifaceted way of learning these concepts that relate to their culture. The other part of our program is having college mentors come in and support our students. And this is our near peer program. We want the college students to talk about their lived experiences as a gifted student navigating college, because what we also like to tell our students is that once you are gifted, you are always gifted. And you're a gifted college student, you're a gifted adult, you're a gifted elderly person. Through every aspect of your life, you will always have this different cognitive profile that you will need to know how to navigate. And so that is a very impactful way in which we are allowing our students to see themselves in these college students that are navigating that space. We also have BIPOC professionals come in and demonstrate their career, share their career and success in their journey navigating the world as a BIPOC professional. And our mentors also lead our workshops, and we also do workshops through the program as well. And then the students take what they've learned and apply it to their school, apply it to their life, and they have opportunities in order to increase the power of collectivity and representation in their school. So I kind of already talked about this, but some of the outputs, I'll highlight this area right here, is we have a staff-facing student profile. And this is really important because the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk about what is inside of those. So as an organization, our staff and college mentors, we are observing these cultural characteristics, these cultural superpowers within our students. And we are noting them in the student profiles and gathering a body of evidence in order for students to be formally identified if they're not already for gifted and talented, and supporting those students as they are unveiling their cultural superpower, their gifted cultural superpowers. Students are also creating student portfolios, and it is really impactful because they are able to explicitly know exactly how they are presenting their gifted cultural superpowers in a way that supports their positive social and academic identities. It's really cool. So if you haven't noticed already, our driving belief is that some BIPOC students demonstrate their giftedness through their culture. And schools sometimes are not equipped to identify these, especially if their teacher or administration population doesn't reflect the BIPOC identities. But even if that is not the case, schools are typically not designed to understand these cultural characteristics for giftedness. So this is my favorite video. I show this all the time, but this is an example of us observing students just being their amazing selves in our program. And this actually was our summer camp last year. And this just happened. This is, I believe, the fourth day of our summer camp. Our summer camp is hosted here in Denver the third week of July. And the students aren't with each other for very long. They're with each other for 5 days. But as you can see, I want you to pick up on a couple of things in this video. The camaraderie that the students have with each other, it looks like they've known each other for the full school year. They are looking towards the leader, which is this gentleman here in the white, and they are picking up on also the different things that are exhibited here. So what we do as a staff is we analyze these cultural activities that the students are doing, and then we break it down into critical thinking concepts that are related to gifted and talented. So for example, this game that I'm going to show you, which is shadow boxing, I'm sure you've seen it around. These are those activities or these attributes that you can see within this game. So rapid and quick-witted physical response time, quickly learning, rhythm, advanced communal connection, quickly deciphering patterns, and probability. And so if we analyze this even further, which is what we do in our program, this is a breakdown of one of the things in which we are connecting a body of evidence for. So empathy and connection, the skill to read and interpret the body language of others to build strong connections and understanding. So if you have a high level of this, if you are able to do this really quickly, this to us is a cultural superpower, a cultural gifted attribute. So I'm going to show you exactly what's happening, and then I will play the video. So in shadow boxing, if you're not familiar, it actually originated in Japan around 2001, but somehow, got to the rest of the world. And students now for the past couple of years have been playing shadow boxing in school. Sometimes it gets outlawed or banned. But if you're able to see all the skills that are associated with this game, then you could apply it to be a concept that is able to cultivate these gifted skills within the students. And so the concept of the game is you have to point up or down, and the way that in which you point, the other person has to point the opposite way. If you point the same way, because it's very quick, then you lose. And then if you do it a second time, then you lose. So it's like and then the third time if you do it, then you're lose the game and you declare the winner. So that's exactly what's happening here. The cool thing about this is that this is our staff member who's in his 30s, and this kid is like, I could beat you because you're old. And so let's see what actually happened.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, he got.
It just makes me smile because they were just having so much fun. And so what I did afterwards is I actually explicitly told them all of these things on the side. So all the things that you see on the side, they were like, whoa, this is what we're doing. And actually, it was one of the students who said, and you know what, miss, it's also probability. And I was like, you bet it is. It absolutely is. So, talking to the students through these skills that we see all the time in our program, they are able to activate those cultural superpowers, and it invokes this confidence, and they are proud to be a gifted person of color. So, what we have done is we have created something called the multicultural gifted rating scale, and it essentially is able to take the things that you just saw in the video and observe these and connect them, like I said, to those gifted attributes related to critical thinking skills. And this was designed by myself, and I am gifted. So I went into several rabbit holes over a couple of months and was like, I see these things as I'm working with students. And so this is was also highlighted in 40 years of research by the greats. So Dr. Joy Lawson Davis, all of the amazing greats that you all know. And so this wasn't just like my brain assessing this, but it was other folks over a span of years that I have seen this is exactly what they're looking for. And so, yeah, these are some of the things that we are observing in our program. Translates languages for family with extreme levels of accuracy. It takes a different cognitive profile in order to do that. I was just at an event on Friday, and the quickness in which the translators were able to translate what was being said in a whole nother language, like that is beyond something that I could ever do. And so we need to have that as a gifted characteristic as well. Oral traditions, being able to understand and articulate over a span of generations, especially through all the trauma that a lot of BIPOC folks have been through, and be able to do that in order to cultivate and save our culture is a superpower that is beyond anything that is seen in schools, and we need to celebrate that as well. And then this leadership one is typical for gifted and talented students. With our BIPOC staff, we are able to see and cultivate these nuanced characteristics through gifted children in a unique way. But we all do this as a BIPOC community as well. So I always grew up hearing our elders say like, "Ooh, that baby's been here before. This child is 6 going on 26," or "Ooh, that baby has an old soul." Really, if you named those statements in a academic way, you're basically saying that this child is exhibiting skills and attributes that are not normal for that particular age group. So, if you have ever said this before, or if you have observed these, then you're probably seeing cultural superpowers that need to be cultivated within students. So, thank you so much for being here and learning about gifted cultural superpowers with me. I am really excited to continue to do this work because it is the work that I needed to have as a gifted student who always navigated spaces culturally by myself. So, for example, in high school, I was the only Black female in my classes for 4 years. And I knew, I was like, why do I not see my friends in this class? So, for example, my friend who I've had since freshman year, she knows a lot of languages, and she came here at the age of 13 from Rwanda and already knew several languages, but she didn't know English at all. And she told me she picked up English in 3 weeks, and she just happened to be translating something, and she was around her family, and they were like, "You know English now?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I do." So, I was like, "Wow, you are a gifted person." She's like, "No." I'm like, "Yes, you are. And you need to be celebrating that and cultivating that." She's like, "Yeah, so right now I'm picking up Russian because it just seems really fun." And I just love running into folks that are cultivating their cultural superpowers like that because that is exactly what I needed to see. And if I would have seen that, then I would not have felt so isolated and I would not have been I would not have rejected that part of myself that I wind up finding in college, but I shouldn't have had to wait until college in order to understand that the that I had these amazing qualities. So, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And here is my contact information. So if you have your phones out and you would like to learn more about our nonprofit and working with schools or the work that we do or work that I do in the consulting firms, please reach out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I love the terminology cultural superpowers.
Thanks.
I was wondering really quickly if you could just, for the people who are watching this, kind of expand on the idea that you were talking about, around, uh, the isolation, like what caused the isolation and, like the impact of that isolation, and then what finally was the event or the events that had you start to break out of that isolation. I know you mentioned like the timeline that it happened in college, but like what was it? Because I think a lot of educators knowing that would be helpful to potentially help BIPOC students break out of that isolation earlier, right? If possible.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm very thankful for my journey because if I didn't experience it, then I wouldn't have been able to create these programs to impact students. But with that, I will say that the alienation, for example, I found out, I think it was like my senior year, that all the students in my AP classes were meeting outside of school. And they all had this like beautiful life where they were like connecting with each other and had camaraderie with each other. And it just so happened that I was in student senate. So I think it was my junior year. Um, and they were like, "Oh, we need help like making these posters for homecoming or something like that." And so I went over one of the houses and they were like, "Yeah, remember that one time that such and such did that?" And they were just laughing and it was so fun. And I was the only one that wasn't there. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, they've been meeting without me. And why? Like, why were they meeting without me? Why wasn't I a part of this crew when I see you all every single day for 5 days out of the week?" So that was like one of the things that definitely broke my heart and alienated me. And then also just I'm not a competitive person. My mom raised me to be extremely proud of our culture, and I was uh, in our culture consistently from a child. And so everything that I did, everything that I breathed was about my community, about connecting and loving on each other. And that was not the environment of my AP classes or even my gifted and talented classes. It was very like I said, very competitive. Like, what did you get on this? Oh, I bet you're not as great as this. And it was like downing each other. And I've heard from other professionals outside of my experiences and the students that I work with that this is a normal occurrence in GT programs. One of the students actually that I worked with a couple of years ago, she said she stopped actually raising her hand because she had a question in class, and a clarifying question, because that's what we do as gifted students, right? We want to dig and we want to know all the things that like our 360 observation of that concept. And so that's exactly what she was doing. And one of the students was like, "Huh, this is just so easy. I don't know why someone would have a question about that." And so she said she just stopped raising her hand and just stopped feeling like she could be included in those conversations. And those are the things that makes our BIPOC students not want to be involved in that. It's not for us. That's not how we navigate. And so incorporating in more like collaborative activities and co- collaborative activities that incorporate their culture would really allow for students to see themselves and want to be active and involved in their GT programming.
So what was it that finally like spurred you out of that isolation in college?
Yes, so attending an HBCU, a historically Black university, I said to my brother, here's what happened. I went to a multicultural college visit tour that was hosted through Denver Public Schools, and I went to CU Boulder with a whole bunch of BIPOC students, and we were all seniors. And I walked on the campus. No shade to CU Boulder. I know there's some CU Boulder alumni in here, but the way that we were stared at there, I was like, it intensified what was happening in my AP classes. And I walked away from that experience and was like, here's what I will not do, another 4 years of this. So I remembered watching A Different World, which was a TV show in like the late 80s, early 90s. And it was about the HBCU experience. And so I went to my brother, who's 2 years older than me, and was like, is that still a thing? Because we don't have any HBCUs here in Colorado. And he was like, yeah, here are some, popular ones. Here are some ones that you should look at. And I applied. And when I stepped on campus, I was around the geeks, the nerds, the gifted, they loved learning that looked just like me. And I am a proud geek. I'm a proud nerd. I always have been. That's why I've gotten myself into trouble because I ask too many questions sometimes. But it was just so great to find my people there, to find people who were just excited about learning about concepts just like me, and that they looked like me, and the amount of diversity that was there within the Black population. So there were people there from all over the world. And that is something that I took with me as I became a teacher, because as a math and science teacher, I was supposed to stick to the concepts. But because of my impact there at Hampton, I incorporated in cultural experiences and activities with my students. And I saw them thrive. I saw them be activated, and I would even bring in professionals as a teacher and say, here's someone who works at Oracle who looks just like you, and talk about your lived experience. And so I've kind of been doing parts and pieces of the nonprofit um, throughout the time that I left Hampton, and I saw the impact and I was like, I'm going to make this a program. So
That's awesome. It's always fun to hear someone's journey. So we all know the research and the statistics, right, around educators in this country, right? They
yeah.
look like me, white women. So what would be your advice to educators who are white women and or just do not necessarily look like or have the same cultural pieces of the kids that we are working with and want to support and nurture? What would your advice be?
So this is actually a topic that I present on quite a bit. there is ultimately nothing that we can do immediately to change that, but I don't think that is the purpose to change that, right? This is the environment in which students are living in, and so what you can do is invite in the community as much as possible and still allow them to see themselves in individuals who are highly successful and who are gifted. And so I have a presentation that I do on how to find community elders and people who are in professional career paths that fit the concepts that you are teaching, and in order to invite them into classes. And really, I got this idea from reading the Funds of Knowledge research. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Colleen. Yes. And so I was like, yeah, that's exactly. So we could be finding this person who is doing like construction, but what do you do in construction? Let's break down those skills. Math, science, physics. It's heavy in physics, right? So how does that person utilize those concepts in their job every day and bring them in? Have them demonstrate that. And so bringing in the collectivity of the students' cultures is exactly what will allow for those students to thrive. And I have seen it to be very valuable.
Absolutely. And very like, right, really attack some of that isolation for sure.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, and then just one last question. What is the best structure for a nonprofit coming into schools?
Oh, okay. So really this varies from school to school. It depends on, especially at the high school level, I find a lot more flexibility with middle school. And so, like, for example, we're in a couple of middle schools right now where they have like a advisory period, or they even have like an enrichment period. We've gone into some schools that know how valuable it is to bring people into community to support students. And so if you have a program like that or a school structure like that, that's really helpful. And the caveat that I would say to that is making sure that students know that our program would be an academic learning environment. So sometimes enrichment programming can be like art or gym, throwing around a basketball, things like that. But our students actually are creating assignments in our program in order for us to use for the body of evidence. So it's really important to like establish that before bringing in our program. And for high schools, it is typically done within a elective or advisory period, typically more times than not an advisory period. And so we're just gathering a cohort of BIPOC gifted students, identified and not identified, in a group. And typically we will meet 2 to 3 times in a week and support the students in all the ways that I talked about today. We typically do not like to come in once a week because we're not able to really see that change and have like those one-on-ones that our college mentors do. And we having professionals come in, we're not really able to do that. And then of course we want to do field trips too and feed the students because they love to eat, and so do we. And so we typically like to come in 2 to 3 times a week and support the students in that way.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much for everyone for joining us. Once again, Shalelia Dillard, just thank you for everything that you do for gifted kids every day. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and we will see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.